Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video. Yesterday at work, I was just going through my day as usual when I received a voicemail from my husband. It was a little surprising to receive a voicemail from him because he knows very well that I prefer texting if it's about something important. Either way, I found the headphones and listened to what he had to say. Never in a million years would I have imagined it to be something that would completely flip my life upside down. So it was clear from the very beginning that the voicemail was meant for one of his friends, and my husband accidentally sent it to me. From the voices I heard, it seemed like he was not at his work but was out at a club or a party. The friend for whom the voicemail was originally intended for must have been running late or something because my husband was asking him how long he was going to be and where he was stuck. He said that they had already gone through several rounds of shots, and if he, the friend, didn't come in the next few minutes, as a punishment, all the rounds for the rest of the night would be on him. I was surprised by his slurred voice and his words that kept overlapping because he was already drunk as hell. I checked the time and it was just 7 p.m. How can my husband be so out of it so early in the evening? But what was more shocking than this behavior of his was the voice that was coming from the background of the recording. It was a girl, and I would have recognized that voice anywhere. She was asking my husband to come over as they were going to the dance floor. I couldn't believe my ears when I heard her. She was the woman my husband was having an affair with about 6 months ago when I caught him. Coincidentally, he was drunk at that time too. He came home late one night and the girl was the one who dropped his drunk ass off. It was pure luck that I was going out for my nightly run at that time and I caught my husband kissing her through the car window. I immediately went up to her and confronted them about it. When she saw me, she was scared to death, and I couldn't really blame her. With the killing stare I gave her, I'm pretty sure anyone would have flinched. I asked her how she knew my husband and found out that they were colleagues. Suddenly, all those late nights when he said he's out with his work colleagues came into my mind, and I mentally slapped myself for not noticing anything before. I mean, if a girl is coming to my doorsteps to drop off my drunk husband and then it's actually my fault that I was so ignorant. I asked the woman in the car how long it had been, and she said with a smile that they did it a few times. That night, I locked my husband out of the house and even took the hidden spare key with me. No matter how much he rang the bell or knocked at the door, I didn't let him in. He eventually fell asleep on the porch, and next morning I packed his bags and threw him out. He did leave at the time, and I was working through my feelings of betrayal, hurt, unbelief, and others I couldn't even name. It was a really hard time, and sometimes I even missed him. I used to remember the good parts of our relationship, and that would bring me to tears, too. After a week of giving me space, my husband came back home one night and begged me to take him back. He apologized, cried, and even hit himself. He said that he was too drunk, and he didn't know how it got to the point that they started kissing, but he regrets and would do anything to make up for his mistake. I don't know why he believed even for a second that I'd fall for that lie after the woman herself told me the affair was going on for a while. I didn't show him any sympathy. I told him to leave, and every time I tried to move on, he came back knocking at my door, sometimes drunk and sometimes sober. He'd beg and cry for me to give him one more chance, and my stupid ass did fall for his act. I made him promise that he wouldn't even look at another woman and that he'd cut all ties with that girl I saw him kissing. He promised me everything, no matter how ridiculous it was. I even asked him to look for a new job and switch as soon as he found one. So we started working on our marriage last month, and that's why hearing him drunk with that girl sent me over the edge. I was in no state to deal with this mess again. I have already exhausted all my patience and compassion the last time I caught him, and I don't care if he's just hanging out with that woman because he still works at the same place. All I care about is how betrayed I was feeling after hearing the voicemail. So I went straight home after listening to it. I knew that if I kicked him out again, he'd keep coming back to me and wear me down like he did last time, and there's no way I was going to let him do that to me again. I also didn't want him to know where I was staying. I needed real time and space from him to work out my feelings, and if that man knew my whereabouts, he'd make sure to not let me breathe. So I did the only thing that seemed like the best option in the short amount of time. I packed my bags, made sure I didn't leave any essentials behind, and called my sister. I told her that I'll be staying at a motel for some time, and if my husband calls, she needs to mislead him somehow. Then I came here and booked this room for a week. I need to figure out what my plan is going forward, but right now I just need to let myself feel the anger and hurt, because this was the second time I found out about him and that woman. Surprisingly, it didn't take me long to get over the shock of it, but that's not to say that it doesn't hurt at all. But the thought that's most prominent and wouldn't leave my mind is that maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe he really got caught up in work politics and had to go out with his friends where that woman was present too. I'm trying my best to justify the voice of that woman in that recording, and that makes me feel like I'm pathetic. So I desperately need an outside opinion. AITA here, or would you have reacted in the same way if you were in my place? So my sister called me yesterday. Apparently, my husband visited her yesterday to know if I was there. It's been about 2 weeks since I found out about him still hanging out with the girl he cheated on me with. When he kept calling me after I left home, I sent him a single text telling him I've decided to leave him for good and that pretty soon he'll get the divorce papers. After that, I blocked him from everywhere so he couldn't contact me. I extended my booking for the room at the motel for another week because I was unable to find an apartment or a room for rent in that short amount of time. And I had to ask my sister again if my husband comes looking for me, she should tell him I don't want to see him. I know it was selfish and maybe stupid of me to put my sister in that spot, because if my husband tried to forcefully enter the house or do something even worse, she could be in danger. But I really couldn't face him even now, and I wouldn't put it past him to find me in this small town in Philly. So when my sister told me he had visited her yesterday, I was scared for a second, but thankfully nothing dangerous happened. My sis told him that I've been staying with her and I don't want to see him at all. She said that he tried to beg her to let him enter, but she shut the door on his face, and pretty soon after that he left. I hope I can get an apartment this week because I want to get my affairs in order before I contact a lawyer and get the divorce process started. I finally found a rental house. It's nothing fancy, simply a two-bedroom house with a joint kitchen and living area. It was near enough to my work and in the opposite direction of my husband's house, so I knew I wouldn't be able to run into him so easily. I paid the security deposit and finished moving in a few days ago. My sister came by to help me, and I also told her that if my husband contacts her again, she doesn't have to lie to him. I did ask her to conceal my new address in case that man tries something. I also visited a lawyer yesterday. I got to know about him from a friend and checked him out. From the success rate of his cases and the way he was telling me about how this stuff works, he sounds like a guy who could get this over with quickly and without any hiccups. So I hired him, and he told me he'll get the papers ready soon. I wish this wouldn't be very complicated. I don't have any proof that my husband cheated on me. So I couldn't charge him with adultery, but I hope for at least the settlement to be a fair one. Can you believe it's been 8 months since I last posted here? These past 8 months have been a wild ride, and I did not enjoy it. My husband refused to give me a divorce, and we had to go to trial. It was a very exhausting process, but the good thing was that in the end, I got more than what I expected. The house we used to live in is under my name now, and I also got to keep half of his business shares, although I sold them for money as I didn't want anything to do with him. My lease with the rental house I moved into when I first left home was for a year, but I decided to leave early. I got all my stuff packed and transported to my old house and even asked my sister, who isn't married yet, to live with me if she wants to have a roommate. She is still deciding on that, and I hope to have her around for at least once or twice a week. In these past 8 months, she was a constant emotional support for me and is the reason that I'm still not sad about what happened. NTA, I don't think you're an a-hole, but I would say you're a doormat who invited your husband to step over you. A man that cheats and lies about it would never change, and that's a fact. You shouldn't have given a second chance and have gotten a divorce the first time you caught his ass cheating. NTA, not an a-hole, but definitely someone lacking a spine. You should have never trusted the guy after you caught him cheating. It was equal to putting your left cheek forward when someone slaps you on your right. But honestly, good on you that at least now you've realized what kind of an a-hole he is. Don't trust him again and just get a divorce. I, 16 female, have a sister, 15 female, with Down syndrome and autism. She cannot care for herself and is completely dependent on us. The doctors say her mental age is probably that of a 2-year-old for context. I have my own room, and my sister also has her own room and her own bed. However, our mom keeps making excuses as to why my sister needs to stay in my room. She says she needs to clean my sister's mattress again before she sleeps on it because there's a possibility there could be dust on it since it was moved around quite a bit. It was cleaned about 6 months ago and nobody has slept on it since. To me, the mattress is pretty clean. It doesn't smell like anything and is completely white. My sister has been staying in my room for about 4 months now. My sister sleeps on an air mattress on my floor that is constantly broken, and my mom never buys a new one. They usually break within the same day we get a new one. This means my sister is basically sleeping on the floor for the past few months, which I can understand can be painful. This has caused her to try to sleep in my bed instead. The problem is our mom never cleans my sister and never makes her take baths or showers. She probably bathes her once or twice a month, and my sister changes her own diapers. Obviously, she's not very good at changing her own diapers and doesn't really know how to wipe and properly clean herself. This causes her to frequently get poop everywhere she sits, including all over her clothes. I have recently started to notice that my bed smells like poop, which sucks for me because our mom won't let us use the washing machine because it's been broken for the last 5 months and always makes excuses as to why she can't take our clothes to wash. So I have no way of fixing this and no spare sheets. The problem is that every time I complain about this to my mom, she starts screaming at me and says she's going through a lot right now and that she's busy and tired and doesn't have time to fix it. And that it really shouldn't bother me that she's in my bed because there's room for both of us. And that I'm just making things difficult for no reason. My siblings, my brother and my disabled sister, always side with her and start yelling at me for stressing her out. Also, my mom or my brother don't have beds. My brother, 27, sleeps on the floor, and my mom, 61, sleeps on a chair in the kitchen, if that helps. AITA? NTA, and this is kind of beyond the scope of AITA, because at this point, you're past figuring out who TA is, and you've breached my mother is neglecting my family territory. It sounds like your father is out of the picture. Your mother is older, and I'm sure she is going through a lot. But the way you're all living is concerning. You need help and intervention. I know it's difficult, but you really need to speak with a trusted counselor or teacher about what's going on. Your mother needs help. You all need some support, and you cannot keep living like this. Please talk to someone about this. NTA, but you need to report your mother's neglect to someone. Maybe confide in a school counselor, since many times they are mandated reporters if they suspect abuse and or neglect. Her not cleaning up your sister when she is incapable of doing this herself is alarming. She may need additional resources to care for your sister, but is too ashamed or proud to ask. With everything breaking and not being fixed or replaced, it sounds like there is a financial component here as well that your mother is overburdened with, but that is no excuse for neglecting the basic needs of a mentally incapacitated minor. So I'm 25, female, pregnant, yay. And today I've had a discussion with my mom, 43, and she's not responding anymore, so I think I might have been too harsh. A bit of background. My mom and I have a strained relationship. She has been abusing alcohol since I was 14. I have not lived with her since I was 16, and in all those years, we have been very low contact. I maybe talk to her once every couple of months. I think there might be years we haven't spoken. 2 to 3 months ago, she was admitted to a mental ward for depression and rehab again, and there they found out she has breast cancer. She says that has been an eye-opener, and she's a changed woman now. 2 weeks ago, I told her I was pregnant, and she was texting me every hour or so to talk about baby things. But I let her know that I needed more space, and that her being too overly present in my life after not being there for a long time is uncomfortable. And if she wanted to work on our band, I would be happy to do so with a professional present. Because I cannot pretend nothing happened, and we are one big happy family. She proceeded to ignore me for a week. This was a sign for me she still cannot handle my boundaries. Today she sent me screenshots of a conversation between her and my grandmother. She's telling my grandmother she's going to make a baby room in her house, but she's doubting if I will trust her with my child because I have crazy mood swings. I promise you I do not. I've had a lot of therapy and developed myself to be a healthy, functioning adult. She also said she feels my mother-in-law is going to be a real grandmother, and I'm going to exclude her. I told her I would not trust her with my child. She's only been sober for a couple of months. She has to prove herself first before she can even begin thinking about being a grandmother. I told her she cannot have a baby room and that this is not her do-over baby. I said I'm happy she thinks she's a changed person, but I've heard this story 200 times before, and she always falls back to alcohol. I told her to not point at my mother-in-law and play victim when she has not been there for me as my mother-in-law has. Honestly, I feel bad about how harsh I was. I essentially said I don't believe she can stay sober. I even fear that this might be the trigger for her to start drinking again. So I could use an outsider's opinion. NTA, sounds like your mom failed her own parenting experience and is looking at your child for a do-over. Anyone that builds a nursery in their home when they are not having a baby is going to be problematic. Also, always remember that your baby is not a therapy pet. Your mom's sobriety and management of her mental health is 100% on her. NTA, you have reasonable boundaries, and you are absolutely right. Your child should not be her do-over baby. You wouldn't even be a bad person if you wouldn't let your mother meet your child at all if you don't feel comfortable with it, especially if she is a danger to anyone. Your mother having cancer or going to rehab doesn't mean she's another person, and she can't expect you to forgive her like that after she was a bad mother for a long time. A baby room is a whole other thing. I can't believe she's expecting you to leave your child with her alone so much she needs a baby room. I wouldn't even accept that with someone that has been a perfect mother, but I guess that could be a cultural thing to have a baby room at someone else's place. I don't know. NTA, while addiction is an illness, making the choice to stay sober is up to her. She should also realize that respect and trust are earned, not just given. Considering your more than rocky relationship with her, you have every right to protect yourself and your baby. It sounds like she's trying for a do-over, which isn't healthy or realistic. She has already shown a knee-jerk reaction in several ways. Could be desperation, anxiety, her mental health, etc. However, that does not excuse her behavior, making assumptions or not respecting your boundaries. Good for you on your success in therapy. Seems as if she needs more work in that area.